Hello friend, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Anim Awe. I'm a licensed mental health therapist, clinical health educator, and today I want to talk again about AI in mental health because this is still a very uncharted territory, if you would say, and there are still some fears and some anxieties, and I think that's a healthy response. But I do want to share some things that I've been working on as it relates to this, and also provide you with real world tips on how to sort of navigate some of these concerns as they're coming up. So we know there are a bunch of issues around AI usage in mental health, and we also understand and not actually quite understand. We there are some fears regarding, like, is this going to take our jobs? What's happening with the information? What's happening with the data? How's the AI being trained? All these legitimate questions, and I want to kind of share what I've been uncovering. I recently picked up a book. This is called Unmasking AI. This book is by Dr. Joy Buolamwini. And if I mispronounce your name, doctor, my apologies. I hope you see this video, and I just want to thank you for this book because this is excellent. She's a researcher, world renowned, respected when it comes to AI. AI is nothing new. It's just new to us, right? And so she's been on behind the scenes around AI and machine learning and all those things for a very long time. And what this book does is it tells her story about uncovering what she calls the coded gaze, right? Which is evidence that supports the actual discrimination and biases in a lot of tech products and AI products. And she kind of talks about how she's galvanizing the movement around preventing AI harm, right? From a social justice perspective, we also understand this environmental perspective. That's a conversation that's been coming up as of recently. And so what does all this have to do with us as therapists, right? We know that AI is pretty much here to stay, right? The kind of concept around, you're either going to learn, you're either going to adopt, or you're going to get left behind. I think that is true for therapists as well. And so my intent with this video is to inform us what the risks are and also provide us strategies with how we as therapists can be informed, number one, and number two, how we can inform the development around these products. So there are roles like clinical advisor. I talked about that a little bit. Product development as clinical providers that we can get into and be joining forces with these tech companies, right? And for some people, you're going to be on board for this, and some people you're going to be like, absolutely not. I want nothing to do with that thing. And so I want to highlight some of the key pitfalls that I think is important for us to acknowledge as like clinicians, social workers, therapists, counselors, whoever you are in this broad spectrum of work, right? So first, it's important, and one of the things that I think she does a great job in acknowledging is the algorithmic discrimination, right? So unchecked and unregulated AI systems can amplify racism, sexism, ableism, and other forms of discrimination. Now, how does that impact us as therapists, right? So many of us, when we're using tools for our practices, whether that's notes, whether that's screening tools, whatever you're using AI for in your practice, which I don't judge because I use AI, it's a game changer, right? It helps. For a lot of us, in my personal experience, it's helped my group practice. It helped my clinicians get their notes done on time. It helped sort of create a learning curve, a supportive learning curve for people to kind of feel more competent around documentation. So I think there are a lot of benefits, but we also have to talk about the not so good things, right? And some of those not so good things are the biases that are inherently embedded in some of these AI tools because of how the AI is trained, right? And so this is particularly concerning for social workers like me or therapists like yourself in the context of the vulnerable populations that we may be serving and how AI-driven decision making, right? So what this sort of looks like in our day-to-day practice, again, I'm going to use examples for notes because I use AI note taking, particularly auto notes. What this could look like for us is like being mindful and giving that feedback back to the product developers or the tools about the documentation that you're noticing. Really do your due diligence in reading through that documentation when it's done being generated by the AI, right? Making sure that you're not seeing any language that's concerning. You're not seeing any consistency. You're not seeing maybe any biases that might be coming up in the documentation, how the AI is conceptualizing some of the clients that we're working with, right? And so naturally AI isn't, I mean, unless you're recording the session as well. You want to just be mindful about how some of that language is being used and give that feedback to back to the product, right? There's oftentimes when you use the AI, there's like a thumbs up, thumbs down button where like you can give feedback and then it'll ask for you like to give specific details. I think that's incredibly important, and if you're deciding to use AI responsibly as a mental health practitioner, I think it's to our benefit to use that tool to kind of help give that feedback so that the tools can continue to improve, right? And then secondly, I talked about this a lot, is the bias in the assessment tools, right? So I know Simple Practice has made a shift over into kind of using some of these tools, right? Or these AI systems built into their tools. Right now it's mostly note taking, but I can definitely see it going to other aspects and avenues. And so if the agencies that, you work with or your group practice is using these tools to assess risk assessments, right? What you got to think about for a second, like, what are we building? What are we using to help support, build, and train that model, right? What are the resource allocation, eligibility determination? These systems may replicate, amplify existing societal biases that are already held against marginalized communities, right? So if a Black woman is coming, or you're primarily servicing Black women and you're passing out these AI tools for screening and assessment, right? Is it automatically going to diagnose her with a particular diagnosis versus like what's actually going on, right? So like, how can we control for bias? And again, one of the things that I think is important for us to do is to give that feedback to the tool. So I want to talk about, I talked enough about the problems, right? I want to talk about actually one more problem is reinforcing stereotypes, right? Many AI tools, because of how they're built, how they're trained, may reinforce harmful or perpetuate harmful narratives or assumptions about certain groups. So that's, again, something that we want to be mindful of. And one of the things that we can do as providers is read through the notes again to make sure we're not seeing any problematic language or concerns or patterns in what the AI is returning back to us, right? And so one of the ways, or some of the ways that we can navigate these issues as social workers, as therapists, as mental health professionals, is that we got to advocate for transparency, right? Push for disclosure about what AI systems your agency, or maybe what you are using, or maybe if you're in a group practice and your agency is developing or using an AI model, ask questions, right? Ask them, how this was trained. I would even push it a step further and like ask for a meeting with the AI developers, right? The product tools, right? For example, the team behind, again, Simple Practice, AutoNotes, whoever you're using, ask for a meeting. Like, ask the questions, like, how was this trained? How do you decide who makes the decisions around any particular model, right? And so like, be informed so that you can feel comfortable and safe using whatever the product is. I also encourage people to question the tool. Don't accept AI recommendations uncritically, right? We're not giving up our brain power. We're not trying to give up everything that we've already learned already. Like, you're supposed to use this as a supplement, right? As a tool. That means you're not dependent on it, right? We're to the point where you're no longer thinking, using it. And I hope you see that distinction, right? Like, I'm using this as a tool to help me get my notes done, but I'm not neglecting my clinical skill sets, right? So being critical, I think, is a healthy response to this. So don't accept the recommendations. Read through those notes, as I've said a bunch of times already. Use your professional judgment and understanding the algorithms, or understanding how the data is being presented to you. Don't, never negate your clinical judgment, right? Because that's how you got this far in this field so far. I also think, again, it's important to document any disparities or any inconsistencies that you're seeing, making sure that you report that back to the developers or whoever owns the system. Having that communication channel is important. And again, I implore individuals who are behind the scenes of these tools to create a community where people can give that feedback to you and you receive that, and having that sort of transparent conversations can be really helpful in kind of building that trust and establishing that trust for your product and for your tool. And I think also it's just important to support or see how you can be a part of, the ongoing development and changes. That can look like different ways, whether it's voluntary, whether it's in these groups, whether it's in these spaces to give feedback. I think that's really important. for us as clinicians to be a part of that. And then I think also it's important that we question and always prioritize protecting client privacy, right? So question the data and the collection storage practices. Like I said, always be critical, ask the questions, and making sure that your client is informed on how and why you are using AI, right? Or how, in what ways you're using it in your practice. I think having them also be informed and making an informed decision on whether or not they want to use it in the practice is important as well. So all in all, I think this book is amazing. I'll definitely encourage you all to check it out if you haven't already. I do think AI is amazing in so many ways. I think it can help us in so many ways as a tool, as a support, not as a crutch, right? So there's a difference. And so I'm really interested to see how these conversations around AI and mental health are shifting. Is it shifting in a direction where like we're becoming more receptive, we're becoming more open to it, or are we still kind of worried, concerns? And if you find yourself on either end of the spectrum, I'd love to see in the comments below what are some of your concerns or what has helped you feel more accepting and adoptive more towards AI. If so, yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you like this video, share with somebody that you think might find it useful, and ask me questions because I'm on the path of being an AI expert as it relates to mental health, and I'm super excited. This is not my first rodeo. I have several other videos about how I've been using AI over the past 2 years in my practice and how to continue being better at it, but also being safe is the most important thing for me, and it's all about that balance. So thank you for watching this video. You all take care, and I'll talk to you soon.